She has poems on pages 52 and 198. Please welcome Cyra Dumitru.
Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Scott, for envisioning this book. And thank you, all of you who are reading tonight. Your poems have just added to enlarging my perspective on the history of this region. And I really cherish that line, Letitia, that you just read, that we are a people of renewal. And I want to remind us of that. That feels quite relevant. We are a people of renewal. I'd like to begin with a poem on page 198. An orb spider scolds the poet. Perhaps many of you have seen those large spiders in your garden that are often yellow and black and white, and they make these gigantic webs the size of a shield. They're just spectacular. And I had the honor of living with an orb spider who lived just outside the glass for most of the summer last summer of 2015. And my day would begin and end with looking to see if she was still there and if just to watch her. So, but I did tear her web the first time because I didn't know it was there, and I got a real scolding. So an orb spider scolds the poet. When you gazed at the morning moon, how did you miss the subtlety before you? This swaying space, glisten of raindrops suspended, anchor of my body. When I formed this web across your doorway, I thought you would see the lines and find another way out. You are a poet and supposed to notice. Well, my web is not ripped totally to shreds. More of a loosening, a thinning, where it connects with rock wall. I will mend my own wound, reweave the ragged. But this time, notice how I feel my way along the edge, drop, turn, and turn again, each strand pulling like a distant memory from my core, becoming tangible and clear out here in the open. And the second poem, part of what I love about the book is you get a sense of the origin of the ideas for these poems. Sometimes they're family stories, sometimes it comes from a reading, sometimes it comes from a phone call and someone's telling you the story over the phone and you're taking notes. The story behind this poem was I was reading an amazing book called Texas Tears and Texas Sunshine, Voices of Frontier Women, edited by Jo Ella Powell Exley. I found it in the gift shop of a hotel in Marfa, and this particular narrative was an oral narrative told by a woman who was born a free woman in Africa, and as an adult woman, kidnapped, taken from her family, her children, put into slavery, taken to the United States, stripped naked, put on the auction block in New Orleans, brought to Texas, lived through the Emancipation Proclamation, lived to be fully human, free again, fully more human agency for herself. And then she was interviewed during the Depression and shared her story. And what an astonishing story. And I was trying to imagine, how does one reconcile all of that in one lifetime? And all I can say is a few days after reading this poem, this voice woke me from deep sleep, and Sylvia King has a lot to say about things. So this is Sylvia King, was this woman who I speak of. The poem is called Years Following Her Death. Former Texas slave Sylvia King speaks to a kidnapped Nigerian girl. I tell you, my daughter, ideas are dangerous, especially the thought of a self. Imagining you can name who you really are, choose where you will stand in this world. That is why they took you, herded you from school. You had entered ideas as if they were oceans, and you, the navigator riding the waves. I know. More than a century ago, I too was taken, not from a schoolyard, but from fields that fed my family, husband, and children. Taken, as if the life I was making was just dew upon the grass. The ocean I crossed was a writhing beneath my back, and the unclean smells of those shackled alongside me. I too was stripped, presented at market, told where to stand in a language that sounded like the tearing apart of trees, a language I use to speak to you now. I learned to inhabit my body by frequenting places where no one would look. Secret folds within my soul where I felt the faces of my children, heard their voices pronounce my true name. You must make it enough. If not the dream you once harbored of being a doctor, then the motion of ideas rooted already inside of you. When men you do not choose make you feel skinless, there is still the idea of outliving their ignorance. Idea of unexpected kindness rising beside you, a butterfly from the thistles. Here is my voice, still alive and testifying across the ages. It recognizes you and holds you in prayer, and there is so much more than any of us can see.
That's true.
Thank you, Cyra. That's absolutely wonderful.
That's Sylvia King.
It is Sylvia King's voice, absolutely. The voices in this book are absolutely amazing. And one of the things that was a marvelous serendipity for us was finding this wonderful painting by Robert Lentz for the cover of this book. The painting is of Wewa of Zuni, who is the persona of Scott Wiggerman's poem in this volume. Scott Wiggerman will be next. His poem is on page 80. So please welcome Scott Wiggerman.
I was wondering who was going to have to follow Cyra, but it's like, well, I guess I can do that. So I guess I will start with that poem. It is called Twofold, One Kind. It's on page 80. Wewa was a Native American who was born male, but lived her life as a female. A Lamana, a Zuni gender that combined both male and female elements, now called Two-Spirit. She was one of the few Zuni who learned English, which enabled her to become close friends with the anthropologist Matilda Cox Stevenson, who you'll hear referenced in the poem, who did not realize Wewa's biological sex despite living with her for 6 months. In Washington, D.C., where Wewa was treated as royalty before returning to New Mexico, where she was arrested and imprisoned for insubordination. Upon her death, Wewa was buried in both pants and a dress. And if you notice on the cover, half of her is male, half of her is female. If you divide the face in half, and the hands and everything else. Anyway, So, twofold, one kind. They don't know what to make of me. Don't have a word for a lamana. Beyond my skirts and sashes, my deliberate short stride, I, Wewa, am the tallest of a shiwi. My shoulders, my hands, my jaw are giveaways that I am one of the elite of my pueblo. But most whites choose to see me as a woman. Even Tilly, who studies our people. In 1885, she took me to Washington, where I was celebrated as a princess, a priestess, a Zuni maiden. I attended teas, receptions, balls, made calls like society women. I bought a red satin parasol and carried it everywhere. The National Museum, the Smithsonian, even the White House welcomed me. Not in Trump's way. At the National Theater, I took part in the Indian dance, waving my prayer stick in time to their strange music. As I stood among their savage, bronzed, and blackened faces, whites pretending to be my kind. I returned to the home of my auntie, returned to my household duties, made pottery like our women, wove blankets like our men, counseled like our lamanas have done for thousands of years. But the white world crushes in, withers us with guns and soldiers. Now imprisoned in Fort Wingate, I am a captive of my gender. Some mistake my quiet for ignorance. But I have learned the language of these white men, their words, invert, man, woman, mujerado, transvestite, freak, berdache. Beyond these walls, another jail, which they call a reservation. Soon, no room for two folds, or Ashiwi, or the way of our gods. Assimilation, their word for eradication.
Yeah.
And to go on a lighter note, I'm choosing as my second poem to read is J. Todd Hawkins' poem, For the Correction of History. It's on page 120. And I'm going to read the background information because it's relevant here. In 1903, a Shakespeare-quoting drifter named David George committed suicide in Enid, Oklahoma, but not before confessing to being Abraham Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth. George's body was embalmed and placed on display at the Enid funeral parlor until it could be claimed by the government or his nearest kin. The mummy became an Enid tourist attraction and eventually fell into the hands of William Evans, Carnival King of the Southwest, who exhibited the Booth mummy throughout the West for many years as a carnival attraction. And this is William Evans' story. For the Correction of History. Yes, the six-legged sheep and the dog-faced calf are lovely in their way, but for you, something different. Let me tell you this. I have a mummy. Come, closer. Yes, closer. He is real. You may see him for yourself for just 2 bits. Look, the brow scar, a misplaced sword blow from Richard III. The crooked thumb, crushed in a curtain windlass long ago. And of course, the twisted leg, so crudely set by Dr. Mudd. I know each crease. I comb his mustache, polish his marble eyes, and at night I slick his leather limbs with Vaseline till he glistens like scarab wings in a black desert. I sleep next to him in the panel truck. We two showmen, we two curators of dead legends. These days, I never leave his side. For once in San Diego, he was kidnapped, ransomed. And in Salt Lake City, I fled in the dark, the sheriff after me for teaching a false history. In Big Spring, they find me for harboring a corpse. They tried to bury my Johnny, as if their own lives were so genuine. Their own stupid stories veritable. It is enough to make me want to stay out here forever, to show my relics before the cactus cloaked in powdered stone, the buzzards minding their private bones. Yes, even the damn buzzards would be better audience. I hit one on the way here, as it gorged on dead rabbit, swollen with heat, and it splashed into unwashable crevices on the ford. I cursed and laughed for miles, but the final laugh is theirs. For any way out of here or into here feels forever gone now, and the buzzards from the ground are sublime and holy. Or perhaps I will learn to float with them through yellow rivers of dust and sun, dancing with the cottonwood plumes, and leave my two-faced kitten, precious Janus, my pickled punks and Fergie mermaid, and yes, even my Booth. Leave him here, on the roadside. The withered pharaoh, leave him clothed in corroborations, dressed in affidavits, propped on plywood for the correction of history. Leave him there, here, disentranced with his own pretended permanence.